Hey, how you doing, everyone? Milsurp Garage here. What we're going to do today is continue with this series on the differences between these Mausers. I'm enjoying this. I just got this book like a month ago. Mauser Military Rifles of the World. The author is Ball, B-A-L-L. And I think the latest edition is the 5th edition. Don't get like the 3rd or the 2nd edition. If you see them on eBay for a cheap price, don't think you're getting a deal. This book went from like being like a pamphlet to a big, huge, thick, like a telephone book, 5th edition. So if you get like the 3rd edition, the 2nd edition, it's going to be like literally very, very thin and not that many pictures. And you'll probably see better deals on eBay for it. Don't think you're getting a deal. You definitely got to go for that 5th edition that I think was printed in 2011. And that's what really started turning me on to these different Mausers. The Mauser is the type of gun that you can't really just get one to cover everything because there were so many differences between them. I don't mind getting like one Lee Enfield number 4, even though like there might have been ones made in Canada and ones made in England, and the differences are so subtle and they're basically the same thing, the same design. I don't have to go nutty where I need every single possible variation of a gun, but the thing with these Mausers is that they went through, so they were just around for so long, and these guys, these Mauser brothers, this family of gun makers, they were so brilliant with everything, with their engineering, their manufacturing, their marketing, everything about how they did everything was good. It was like a brother for everything, you know what I mean? And they were just so awesome with getting these things out there all around the world. They were just so good that just everybody wanted one, and everybody wanted one in their own little ways. And they would just, since they're making so many different ones for so many different places, they were able to just do these odd little things here and there to different ones. Sometimes there's enough stuff different that it really sets it apart where, it's pretty cool to have another one or an example of that. One example here would be, I'm going to show you just in basically what you see in the camera view right here is what I'm going to analyze between this design, which is the 1895 Chilean design. You can see the Chilean crest right here. This is 1895. This was made by Ludwig and Loewe before the DWM merger. You could see the Jewish star right here as the cartouche because the Ludwig Loewe gun-making empire was run by a Jewish guy. This being 1895, this even pre-World War I, things were very different around in Germany. Hitler was like 3 years old. This design right here that you see is basically a design that carried straight through to the K98, which was an 1898 design, which basically, this basic design that you see hadn't been changed like all the way up through till modern day, basically, for this Mauser design. Being like specifically this bolt release that looks like this, that also has the ejector inside there. You can see it. The ejector is in there. This safety, which is a safety that has has to be cocked for that. It has a fire position right here. It has a fall down position right there. It has a fire position. It has it has a middle position for the bolt can be operated to unload or clear a misfire or whatever. You'll be able to operate the bolt to do whatever it is you need to do, but the trigger is disconnected. Or a full safety position where the bolt is locked, everything is locked. Of course, the Chilean Mauser does have its own little things, like we discussed last time, this little recess right here to protect against broken locking lugs. so that this would lock the bolt in. Pretty cool. Not something you'd see on the German K98. Did have a third locking lug that was up in here, though. I think I'd rather have the third locking lug than the safety. But both would have been cool to have. So you have that safety, you have that bolt release and ejector inside of here. You have the flush magazine that's double stacked. Rounds double stack here. And the extractor, as you can see, is what's called a non-rotating collar. If you look, here's the extractor. Clips on the end of the round, here on the end. Clips into the rim of the cartridge. And this is the collar that runs around the bolt. And you'll see as I turn the bolt, you'll see that that collar does not turn and the extractor stays in one spot. This is a Mauser's control feed system. See, what's cool is the Chilean Mauser has a ramp right in here on the follower, so you can close the bolt on an empty chamber, which is, for this demonstration, helps a little bit. You'd be able to pick up a round, say they were rounds in the magazine. As you started to close, you'd get around here somewhere, and you'd actually have the rim of that cartridge shoved up underneath the extractor here. So you would actually be connected to that round. You'd be able to move the bolt back and forth and have that round. Even before you even closed it, you'd have that round connected to the bolt. So if you had a failure to feed, for some reason it wouldn't go into the chamber or whatever, you would have that round attached to be able to pull it out and extract it here with the ejector. It's not necessary to even close the bolt or to turn it down to pick up that round. The round is fed underneath. It's fed up and under the extractor as it's fed. That is the control feed system. Now let's compare that to the Argentine Mauser, the 1891. Now in my video on this 1891, I incorrectly referred to this as a control feed system when it is not. Let's take a look at the differences here. Number one, the bolt release. The bolt release basically functions the same with the ejector in there. You can see it right here where my pinky is, the ejector in there. But for some reason, Mauser thought it was important then to have something here to kind of put a little resistance on the stripper clip as you were adding it in. So it kind of positively held it in there. You got to kind of put this one in a little bit of an angle, push that out a little bit and shove it in, and it would hold it there. I guess he didn't really think that was that important. He got rid of that. It might actually just get in the way and make it actually harder to insert a stripper clip. The safety is either on or off. There is no middle ground where you could operate the bolt. You either have the safety on, where you have nothing, no bolt movement, no trigger movement. See, midway does nothing for you. It'll just remain locked until it's clicked all the way off. And then the bolt will move, but the trigger will also be active. So you have no way to operate the action while under safe. And most importantly, we do not have a single stack magazine. We have this. We don't have the double stack magazine that's flush with the stock. We have a single stack magazine that is removable. There's a cam thing here that wasn't on all of them, but it is on this rifle, but it wasn't on all of the rifles. And there's like a button that you press back here where my thumb is with the tip of a Spitzer round that releases this. Now Mauser always could have, like I said, this wasn't on all of them, so that might not necessarily be there. So say we got rid of that. Instead of a button back here, you always could have had a button here somewhere that you would press to release the magazine. And you could have actually had a pretty rapid way of pulling magazines in and out and loading a loading system like that, more like a modern day loading system, but that wasn't deemed necessary. That's kind of like not how wars were fought, believe it or not. It wasn't about throwing a whole bunch of rounds downrange quite yet. It was still into that marksmanship, one round at a time thing with magazine cutoffs and all kinds of stuff like that. They really didn't fully understand the importance of just throwing rounds downrange wherever, just putting down a whole bunch of fire, and whatever you hit, whatever you don't hit, you don't hit. You could always get more ammo, you can't get more men, all of these expressions. They learned that by throwing a lot of ammo downrange, you can keep your enemy hunkered down and maneuver against him. But back then, not yet. They were still into that marksmanship thing of one round at a time. But most importantly here, you see there's no non-rotating collar. There's an extractor in the bolt, very similar to the Mosin Nagant, let's say. And like the Mosin Nagant, this is known as a push feed system. It is not the controlled feed system that I said it was in the video for this gun. I'm not going to go back and change it. I'm going to leave it wrong, because it just goes to show this whole learning experience with these things. It was just plainly obvious that it wasn't a controlled feed system either. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. But doing some research, I read kind of like what I already knew. And I was like, why didn't I know that? Look at how different it looks. It doesn't have the non-rotating collar, and the difference with this is that you push forward, you pick up a round, you pick a round up out of the magazine, and it's at the head of the bolt, and you're pushing it in. Even if you push all the way to here, if you pull the bolt back, you'll have nothing. You'll just push the round into the chamber. It'll just sit here. You won't be able to pick it up just like this by pushing into it. What picks up that round is when you turn down. Watch it move forward as it moves down. See that? And as you do that, you'll hear it actually click, because the extractor will click over the rim of the round. Then at that point you will have it, and it'll be connected, and you'll be able to pull it back and extract it. Because of this system that's like the Mosin, it's a little harder on the extractor. You break extractors with these a little bit more, because every single time it has to click over it. So with the controlled feed systems, when they say, hey, don't just open up the bolt, throw a round down here on top, and then just slam it closed, because the extractor will click over the round, but it's not really meant to do that. It's meant to be fed up underneath. And that's why they say don't do that, because you could mess up the extractor. I mean, I guess you can. It will click over it, but it's not really meant to, and you're putting wear on it that you don't necessarily need to put. If you just opened up the bolt and just shoved it down into the magazine, then when you push forward, not with this one, I'm talking about with the controlled feed system. If you just shove it down into the magazine, when you push forward, it'll come up underneath the extractor. Why don't I just put it up here so that I don't make it confusing, because I'm giving an example with the wrong gun. With this system, if you were to just throw a round down here on top and then just close it, it would work. You wouldn't pick it up, even pushing to here, you wouldn't pick up the round like it would normally if it came out of the magazine. But if you turn down, it would click over the rim of the cartridge. But you would be putting unnecessary wear on this extractor. You'd actually see a mark made on it just from doing it once. But you would not be hurting this 1891 by doing that, because that's how it feeds every single round. It feeds every single round by it just basically laying up on top. When you push it out of here, you're just pushing it in. You're not feeding it underneath this extractor at all. And when you push down like that, it will click over the rim. That's what it does every time. So there are two completely different systems, I guess. Mauser, he abandoned this system. I mean, not entirely, obviously. He just modified it. But those are some pretty significant modifications. It makes the function, completely different. With the bolt here. This extractor here, this system that you see right here, he didn't like it. He got rid of it. And when they went to the K98, they never turned back. Never left that design. It stayed like that. For everyone else. For the Swedes, Yugos, all different designs followed that controlled feed system. So, yeah, so that's that. That's two Ludwig and Loewe rifles before the whole merger, and the differences that they have, which are considerable. Two Mausers that are very different rifles, although they look very similar. That is a pretty significant design change done between 1891 and 1895. And there are others, so stay tuned. This is a series that could go on forever, and hope you're enjoying it. Have a good one, everyone.